Look at trapezoids again. We're going to look at the relationship of the angles within trapezoids. So if we have a trapezoid, again, all that is a figure where one pair of parallel sides, these two sides are parallel. It turns out that the adjacent angles along a leg, adjacent angles along a leg, are supplementary. And if you recall, supplementary means adds to 180. And so these two angles along this leg, the two sides that aren't parallel, is called a leg. So the two angles along this leg, these two angles, are supplementary. They have to add up to 180. So if I told you this was 50 degrees, subtract 50 from 180, and I'd find out that's 130 degrees. And same is true of these two angles. They don't have to be the same, so this could be 30 degrees, 180 minus 30, this angle up here would be 150. But along a leg, those sides are supplementary. That really comes from, if you recall, this was a long time ago, but same side interior angles between parallel lines are supplementary, and that's what these are. So that's what we're going to look at today. And that's what the third thing on this says, adjacent angles along the leg are supplementary. If the trapezoid is isosceles, meaning the two legs are congruent to each other. So an isosceles trapezoid is one where these two sides are equal. What that means is that the base angles are congruent, meaning these two angles are congruent right here, and the diagonals are congruent. This diagonal across here is equal to this diagonal across here. Those two things are equal to each other. And that's what we're going to look at on our assignment today. So let's look at a couple examples dealing with that. So if we look at this to start with, notice it's marked as being isosceles. These two angles are supplementary, so that means that this, the question mark, is going to be 180 minus 130, so the question mark is 50 degrees. Even if it's not supplementary or not isosceles like this, these two angles are still congruent. Still are supplementary, not congruent, they're supplementary. So what I do is the question mark here would be 180 minus 120, or it would be equal to 60 degrees. Same thing is true as if we're trying to solve for x. Because this is isosceles, these two base angles are equal as well. So this has to equal this. So it's a matter of setting up 7x plus 25 equals 95. Minus the 25, 7x equals 70, divide by 7, so x equals 10. And that's the fact that those are base angles. They're along one of the parallel sides. This only works again if it's isosceles. If these aren't congruent, those two things aren't congruent to each other. Likewise on here, these are angles along a leg. They are supplementary then. And that means that 60 plus 30x has to equal 180. Minus the 60, we get that 30x equals 120. Divide by 30, and we get that x equals 4. All right, the only other thing that's on here is down here. Find the length of a diagonal indicated for each trapezoid. Because they are isosceles, these two diagonals are equal to each other. So if xz is 8.1, wy then has to be equal to that. So wy is 8.1. This is isosceles. that means these diagonals are equal to each other. So if YW is 20 and XV is 21x minus 1, then 21x minus 1 has to equal 20. This diagonal has to equal that one. So we'll add 1. We get that 21x equals 21, so x equals 1. That only works, again, as if these are isosceles. You should be able to do the assignment now.